Well, I'm reporting on a supporting document which covers the definition of research hardware, which will be utilized in the FAIR principles for research hardware. And I'm well glad to introduce you to the subject. I will briefly introduce the group, then talk about the motivation, a bit of our methods, introduce the definition along with the challenges we had, and, well, briefly discuss the possible target audience. So let's go right in. This group was founded in early 2020, so 2022, and that has already been, well, 2 years. It was endorsed. We had a group charter, and according to the latest statistics, about 50 members. Nadika, who's present today, is one of the two chairs, along with Julian Colomb. We felt the need to define research hardware, created a subgroup, which I happily chaired for the last 2 years. We started with an outreach campaign to gather as diverse input as possible, and, well, are now able to publish the definition. We think that research hardware, being a part of everyday research, is not yet really recognized as research output, which was one of the motivations to create another definition. Research hardware is complex to disseminate because it consists of physical objects which are interacting sometimes with software, firmware. They are defined by external design files, specifications, and, well, mostly enhanced by documentation, hopefully. Then we have situations where research hardware became such a commodity that it stopped being research hardware, which I will go into some more detail in a minute. And we found a strong, let's say, prevalence for open hardware, which we try to incorporate in our, well, process. And in the end, we needed a definition that is useful in the FAIR context. So we were inspired by the FAIR principles for research hardware, research software output, and started with a literature review, which helped us to identify 17 existing definitions of research hardware, more than 10 terms, let's say terms, referring to research hardware, and you see some examples here. And of course, many diverse usage scenarios. How is research hardware created or reused in, well, everyday scientific endeavors? I personally enjoyed the mostly interesting discussions of the controversial edge cases the most, and I will bring an example later. In our supporting document, we continued, well, with defining the scope of the definition, where should it apply or not, and felt the need to compare it with similar concepts like what is scientific hardware related to research hardware and so on, well-known, well, terms. Our supporting document closes with the discussion of qualities of research hardware and their assets. So let's go right in. We found research hardware is a physical object developed as part of or for a research process, which is a nice and brief definition, and I want to take you along some of the challenges. as I mentioned before, some of the hardware that has been developed during research or for research may lose its dedication because it became a commodity and is available in the shop next door. So it may still be hardware, but is now used in research, hardware used in research, and not research hardware anymore. But nevertheless, it may become a component of new research hardware. Other hardware may be interdependent with software and firmware and many other components. If you think of computers, programmable microchips are just one of the, let's say, complex situations where we found ourselves challenged to distinguish clearly between hardware and software, firmware, FPGAs, and so on. Challenging was also that hardware is specified by design files. And as I mentioned before, hopefully has some documentation, which are all different media, and then at the same time could be made up of hardware components or be a module to itself, another piece of hardware. I think most of the 17 definitions we found in the literature review required some kind of openness right in their definition, which we found, let's say, non-trivial to use. So we decided to not have any rights or licensing in our definition. But I think at least more than half the definitions we reviewed require some kind of openness. Well, and in the end, we found, we identified a broad selection of physical objects that are created in research, as diverse as mycelium growing, well, building blocks for houses, research on how to create dust clouds, and so on and so forth. So in the end, we found this brief definition the most helpful in our, well, group, and we hope the target audience will feel the same. So we hope that researchers reusing or creating research hardware, yeah, I'm sorry, that's the abbreviation, will benefit from our definition to, well, as they can assess their own take on their tools they use in everyday research, or maybe they create for their research, that this would be research hardware, in fact, or something else. Such a definition may also be helpful to put research hardware on a map in terms of well, recognition as research output, so that research assessment exercises, groups may start to well, recognize it or include it in possible assessment exercises. And of course, the technology transfer groups are probably looking for something like that. And of course, as I mentioned before, we have citizen scientists, the open maker community that has put a lot of work and effort in, well, citizen science, research hardware, but also in definitions. And we are looking forward to engage with their comments, which are, well, the next steps for my small subgroup of definition people, and we hope this definition will be well utilized in the FAIR principles. That's it from me, and I take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I open the question session. Shelley.
This is really exciting.
Yes.
I'm part of a group that's considering seriously to stand up a working group, actually an interest group on fair data from instruments. And I feel like we probably should compare notes before we finish our charter. Is that something you consider part of the work that you're doing?
Yes, because as I've shown here, instrument is one of the many terms that is used to refer to what we call or defined as research hardware. Yes, of course. Please, let's get in touch.
Okay.
I,
And
I would love to discuss any
you're
parallels.
great, perfect. I will do that. And the to follow-up question, I took a quick look at your recommendation, and I'm so grateful that you've done this work because it's great to see the landscape analysis of all the definitions. And I wonder if you considered if one of those definitions was that the hardware created data or some sort of observations. And it occurs to me that they might not always, that the hardware might not actually create data, but maybe I'm wrong thinking about that.
Well, I would say sometimes a sensor which has been specifically created, defined, and created for research purposes, creates data even before any human interacts with this, let's say, creation. So, and that is something I also, well, tell people that say, well, that's my data because I bought the sensor and I let the sensor take all the data from nature somewhere. And then sometimes the discussions start, no, it's the sensor that is this piece of hardware that actually transforms signals into data.
Oh, I love this. Okay, we have much to talk about.
Oh,
Great. Thank
yeah.
you so much.
Looking forward to that. Thank you. Please.
Um, Andrew?
Hi, okay, I'm unmuted. Sorry, my Zoom has done weird things to me. So thank you, Alexander. That was really interesting. Just picking up on Shelley's comment about another group that you might be interested in, the persistent identifiers for instruments group. But I assume you possibly know about them already. Um, I I have many questions, and I'm trying to decide which ones I care most about. So let's start with a series of edge case questions. You said you enjoyed the edge cases. Um, I can think of some interesting edge cases. Are you including complicated glassware under the category of instrument? So this is heavily used in chemistry, for instance. My father was a physical chemist, and you get these elaborate spiral blown pieces of glassware. Is that research hardware in your terms? It's hard.
I would say yes. I would say yes, but
Okay.
in our document, we gladly included a phrase that each community can decide on their own how they want to, or which physical objects
Yeah.
should fall under
Mhm.
uh, a definition that is helpful to them, because I personally cannot always decide, has this object been created specifically for research
Mm.
or other use cases? So that would be something up to the community. But yes, please keep the edge cases coming if you want to.
Okay, so that's the easy one. Uh, the next one on my list, and first of all, I like your solution. It's an elegant solution. You know, we leave it up to the disciplines. The next one that occurred to me was specialized reagents, the reagents that you use when doing a piece of, I mean, it's not hard, it's liquid, but it's clearly not software. That one, again, you could say, let's let the community decide. The one that is really, I am not sure how I would answer to this one, but model organisms, C. elegans, Arabidopsis, particular knockout mice for dealing with different strains of disease. They're kind of hardware. They're certainly specific to particular research processes. Are they research hardware?
I had just this discussion after we published our document for public review, and let's say we agreed that it's an edge case to call a living being a piece of hardware. But yes, according to the definition, it is a physical object that can be or has been created as input for a research process.
Yeah.
So still an edge case, and ethically, someone might say no, but I'm very happy to give Nadika the word to.
Okay, I have a whole pile of questions about F, A, I, and R, but I'll leave those for another time.
Nadika.
Oh, may I just wanted to also answer some of Andrew's questions, if I may, and maybe if we have time, I would really love to hear what he has to ask us further. So for the glassware, when we started defining research hardware and doing FAIR principles for research hardware, most of us had in mind some combination of hardware and software, like electronics, with the devices for measurement, something that Shelley asked for. But as discussion continued, for example, if you have a specific case of a glassware that has specific glass and design files and everything, and that glassware works better than the standard one, then it might be a product of research or a part of a research, though it looks really like plain thing to do. And there is a part in our output addressing the complexity of hardware, because it's really hard, as Alexander mentioned, to define it by disciplines. And we tried to put a lot of examples. So if you have more like this, we would be happy to change our document further. And about regions, I'm personally, that's not my area, but we strived to follow what community thinks, not to push them that's why we had that reach out moment. So if we define hardware and people who produce and use research hardware do not feel that definition is basically related to them, then that would be a problem. And one of the most commonly used definition, it relates to open source hardware. It's from the GOSH community, Gathering for Open Science Hardware. And they actually use as an example inside their definition biological regions. I hope I'm spelling that right. So we, among authors of the documents, main authors, we had separate opinions about biological regions and living cells or organisms. But in the end, we all agreed that maybe to follow something that is already used with a lot of people outside. That I hope I helped a little bit.
Well, thank you. Well, I think here's this a very interesting and profound discussion and reflection to do. Maybe we can see something in one of the plenary. Maybe we can have a space